Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 14, Brahma's Prayers to Lord Krishna, text number 57, without any purport. So we'll just read the translation. The original unmanifested form of material nature is the source of all material things. And the source of even that subtle material nature is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. What then can one ascertain to be separate from him? Text 36. Probably everyone knows this verse, or some of us may know it. Samashritya ye para palavam plavam. Mahatpadam punya yasho morare. Pavam buddhir vatsapadam param padam. Padam padam yadvi padam nitesham. You can learn the whole verse if you just memorize a couple of words. Padam. It's half the verse. Samashritya ye parapalava plavam. Mahatpadam punya isho marare. Pavam buddhir vatsapadam param padam. Padam padam yadvi padam natesham. Gaye para palavam plavam. Mahatpadam punya yasho marare. Ladies. Sita.
Mahatpadam punya yasho murare. Bhavam buddhir vatsapadam param padam.
Vatsapadam padam padam.
Padam padam yadvi padam natesham. Samashritaya pada palava palam. Samashritaya pada palava palam. Mahatpadam punya yasho murare. Mahatpadam punya
Yasho murare. Samashritya, having taken shelter. Yea, those who. Pada, of the feet. Palava, like flower buds. Plavam, which are a boat. Mahat, of the total material creation. Or of the great souls. Padam, the shelter. Punya, supremely pious. Yasha, whose fame. Mora Are, of the enemy of the demon Mora. Bhava, of the material existence. Ambudi, the ocean. Vatsapadam, the hoofprint of a calf. Parampadam, the supreme abode. Vaikuntha. Padam padam, at every step. Yat, where? Vipadam, of material miseries. Na, none. Tesham, for them. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada's disciples. For those who have accepted the boat of the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of the cosmic manifestation, and is famous as Morari, the enemy of the Mora demon, the ocean material world is like the water contained in a calf's hoofprint. Their goal is Param Padam, Vaikuntha, the place where there are no material miseries, not the place where there is danger at every step. Purport. This translation is taken from Srila Prabhupada's commentary on the Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 2, text 51. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, this verse summarizes the knowledge presented in this section of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Krishna's lotus feet are described as palava, flower buds, because they are the most tender and of a pinkish hue. According to Srila Sanatana Goswami, the word palava also indicates that Lord Krishna's lotus feet are just like desire trees, which can fulfill all the desires of the Lord's pure devotees. Even exalted devotees like Sri Narada, who are themselves the great shelter for the conditioned souls in this universe, personally take shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna. Thus it is natural that when Lord Krishna manifested himself as all the young boys and calves of Vrindavan, their parents were more attracted to them personally than previously. Lord Krishna is the reservoir of all pleasure, and being all attractive, the ultimate object of everyone's love. So the verse again. Samashritya ye palava, Samashritya ye pada palava plavam mahatpatam puni yusho marare bhavam budhira vatsapadam param padam yadvi padam natesham. For those who have accepted the boat of the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of the cosmic manifestation, and is famous as Morari, the enemy of the Mora demon, the ocean of the material world is like the water contained in a calf's hoofprint. Their goal is Param Padam, Vaikuntha, the place where there are no material miseries, not the place where there is danger at every step. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutaya Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatundave Gauravani Vicharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskadyade Satarane. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, from the very beginning, it is said, Nigama Kalpatarara Galitam Palam Sukhamukha what? Sukhamukad Amritadrava Samyutam Pibata Bhagavatam Aliyam Rasam Aliyam Muhuramahu Rasika Bhuvi Bhavikaha. This is the third verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Because Srimad Bhagavatam is not different from Krishna. Krishna's name is not different from Krishna, and when we chant without offense, then we can experience that. Krishna's form is not different from Krishna. So one day, when we're more advanced, when we see the form of these pictures of Krishna, we'll be able to talk with them. And they can talk with us. And Krishna's qualities are not different from Krishna. His associates are not different from Krishna. And his lila, his pastimes. And that's what Srimad Bhagavatam is. The nama, the rupa, the guna, lila, parishads of Krishna. Therefore, nigama means the desire, the Vedic literature. Nigama kalpa tarara. What is kalpa tarara? What is a kalpa vriksha?
Desire tree.
Yes, and what is tarara? It's a tree. Instead of kalpa vriksha, they have kalpa tarara. Nigama kalpa tarara galitam phalam. What does galitam mean? Fully ripe, mature. In other words, there are so many literatures describing Krishna, and the Bhagavatam happens to be a literature that fully describes Krishna as Swayam Bhagavan. Of course, it goes through 9 cantos describing the different aspects of Krishna and the different devotees. That's why if we read a book such as the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, this is a summary of the 10th canto. It's the 10th canto in such a way, it's a story. I mean, the 10th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam is stories, but the Brihad Bhagavatamrita gives the very essence of all the stories. And the stories are not just whimsically presented. Shukadeva Goswami just wasn't, whatever came to his memory, he presented it to Parikshit Maharaj. So after all, after 7 days of not sleeping, you can't think very clearly anymore. No, they're very systematically presented from one, for instance, the Brihad Bhagavatamrita goes from one level of devotional service to the next. Now, in our progress towards pure devotional service, we'll also go from one level of devotional service to the next. As we were explaining yesterday, that there is, or the question was asked about karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga. So generally, when we come to devotional service, we're afflicted by pain of the material existence, and we don't know why. Why am I unhappy? Why am I depressed? Why am I in misery? And most people think it's because I don't get enough sense gratification. If only I had more money, more opportunities for sense gratification, then certainly I'd be happy. My house isn't big enough for my 5 cars. I need 7, one for each day of the week, an extra one for the holidays. I have 1 wife, but 7 girlfriends is not enough. We need a little bit more variety in our life. Then we'd be happy. Therefore, those who approach devotional service and they hear that fact at the very beginning, that the reason that we're not happy is that you're engaged in sense gratification. Therefore, we don't tell people that at first, because otherwise they'd never come back. If that was if they thought that's the beginning of our philosophy, they wonder what comes after that. That's bad enough. Anything after that has to be 100% worse. So therefore, we generally tell people just sing along with us and take prasadam. But the result is that imperceptibly, if they do that chant without mental speculation, if they hear from the right source and don't think they're going to become God by chanting Hare Krishna, become misdirected, then gradually their hearts actually become a little purified and they lose their taste for sense gratification. Therefore, there was one singer named Donovan. He was very popular in the 60s. And he came to see Prabhupada with his girlfriend. So as soon as his girlfriend started to hear Prabhupada preach, she started to tug on Donovan. Let's go, we got to go. We got to go. She instinctively realized that if he stayed around, she might lose him. Because just by being in Prabhupada's presence, she was afraid he might become purified. Then her whole existence, her whole hold on him would be lost, so she tugged him away. Same thing with John Lennon, Yoko. She didn't like John Lennon to get too much association with Prabhupada because she was afraid to become purified. And she'd lose everything. So, in the beginning, a little purification by chanting, and then people lose their tendency towards the sinful activities. And they actually develop a little bit of a tendency towards austerity, mercy, cleanliness, and truthfulness, which is considered to be abominable in present society among certain sections of society. If you tell people, at least previously, if you used to tell people, I'm a vegetarian, people wouldn't believe you. What do you mean you're a vegetarian? What do you eat? They thought a vegetarian was someone who just ate beans. Rice and beans, that's all. When I first became a vegetarian, I didn't even eat rice and beans. I just ate bananas and raisins. I was a fruitarian for some months. And then after that, I switched over to microbiotics. Carrots. I didn't like brown rice, I just ate carrots. Until I had my first, where they used to make banana bread. And then I became addicted. I joined the Hare Krišna, I mean for other reasons, but for the prasadam was good enough. So a little mercy, the idea of, I mean I was a vegetarian at that time because I never thought I was a vegetarian because I didn't want to kill animals. Of course I didn't want to kill animals, but I just spontaneously became a vegetarian. So people surprised, at least they used to be surprised, how can you be a vegetarian? They asked me, how long have you been a vegetarian? I said, 2 months. Oh, okay, that explains it. You'll get normal again, don't worry about it. It's all right. And what to speak of truthfulness? Practically everything is a lie nowadays. The whole idea, this is science, is a lie. People know it's not science. They can't prove anything. All they can prove is the fact that it's not science. And what to speak of cleanliness. People have no idea what cleanliness and austerity. Even when I was a devotee, I came to the temple one Ramachandra's appearance day in Brooklyn, because I used to go home for Brooklyn. My parents lived in Brooklyn. I went to college in Buffalo, so I used to come home for the holidays, and this happened to be a holiday where Ram Navami was the same time. So I went to the temple in 26 Second Avenue in New York, and the temple president ran up to me and picked me up in the air and asked me, he said, did you do it? I said, do what? He said, did you fast? I said, yeah, it's Ram Navami, I was supposed to fast. At that time we were fasting until someone would go up to the roof and wait to see if they could see the moon. And they see the moon, they said, the moon, the moon. Then the prasadam would be brought out, huge amounts of prasadam. I mean, it wasn't, although it was Ram Navami, actually it looked like Govardhan Puj, the plates. It was a mountain of prasadam. Because the idea of fasting was considered to be quite unusual. Nowadays, if you tell people, on the airplane, would you like some of the food? You say no. She said, what's wrong? I'm fasting. You what? Are you sick? Can we get you anything? Then they get really upset. Because they're afraid, maybe something's wrong with the food. So these basic principles, even people have a hard time accepting it, only when they chant the holy name and get a little purified by that. Imperceptibly, these things become understandable. And without these things, then it's impossible to understand the Bhagavatam. Without at least, what is that verse in Bhagavatam? Does anyone know? Pashugnat. Nivriti tarshera upagiyamanas. Bhavoshadas chotra manobi ramat. Kautama sloka gunanuvaranat. Pamavi rajeta gana pushagnat. What's that? Pashugnat. Animal. Killing animals. So, Nivritti Tarshir Upagiyamana. So these Bhagavatam verses are sung, Kautama Shloka Gunanuvarna, and they purify everyone. They purify the whole existence. Nivritti Tarshir Upagiyamana. Bhavoshadat. It's the medicine for curing our material existence. Bhavoshat Chotra Kautama Shloka Gunanuvarna. What's it? Try one more time. Nivritti Tarshera Pagiyamana Bhavoshatat Chotra Gunanuvarnat Kautama Shloka Gunanuvarnat. Actually, it should be here. Nivritti Tarshera Pagiyamanas Bhavoshatat Chotra Gunanuvarnat Kautama Shloka Gunanuvarnat. Puma virajete. It's not here. What's that? Vina pashugnat. Okay. So it's relishable by everyone because it's medicine. It cures the heart disease that we have. Everyone will relish it except for those who are vina pashugnat. For those who are killing themselves or killing animals. So we try to get people to chant Hare Krišna and take prasadam so they stop eating animals. Then they can start understanding philosophy. Otherwise, it's not possible. Krishna doesn't reveal himself to people who are killing animals, generally speaking, unless they're trying to chant Hare Krišna, and then Krishna gradually reveals himself so that in such a way that they stop killing animals and killing themselves. The other things are illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating, gambling. This is killing yourself, not only animals. So here it says that Nigama Kalpatara Galitambalam Sukha Mukha from the mouth, Galitam Palam, from the mouth of Shukadeva Goswami, the ripened fruit of the tree, of the desire tree of Vedic literature is emanating. So this Bhagavatam is not an ordinary book, it's it's Krishna himself. Anyone who hears the Bhagavatam actually is getting Krishna's personal association through the ears. And Pibata Bhagavatam, one should keep on drinking the Bhagavatam through the ears until rasam, the rasa, the very essence of the Bhagavatam, spoken by Shukadeva Goswami and his followers, the rasa, one should try to drink the rasa, the very essence of the Bhagavatam, through the ears, aliyam, either up to the point of liberation or past the point of liberation. And muhur aho rasika bhuvi bhavikaha, that even on this earth, those who learn how to become relishable, those who can relish the Bhagavatam, that one becomes purified and happy, Krishna conscious, just by hearing the Bhagavatam. Now, we go, for instance, through the 10th canto, not right now, but if we went through the whole 10th canto, we get up to the 89th chapter of the Bhagavatam, or the 90th, depends which Bhagavatam, the Krishna book. It's called the Prayers of Personified Vedas, which goes on for around 160 pages in the Krishna book. And at the end, what does it say? Perform devotional service. Chant Hare Krishna, perform devotional service. And the last verse in the Bhagavatam, what does it say? Does anyone know? In the age of Kali, what should you do? Chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So if we're expecting something else, at the end of the Bhagavatam, it says you should worship Lord Shiva, forget about everything else, you'll be disappointed. From the beginning to the end of the Bhagavatam, it's simply chant Hare Krishna and do devotional service. And the Bhagavatam will give us examples of different levels of devotees, of how they perform their devotional service to make advancement for those who are, by nature, on a higher level of devotional service, although devotional service is absolute. Anyone performing it is on the absolute platform. But there are different types of mellows or different types of tastes in devotional service. And therefore, whether we hear about Dhruva Maharaj, or Prahlad Maharaj, or the Pandavas, or others, Priyavrata Maharaj, that these are all absolute devotees, and we may have a relationship similar to those, and we may learn from them how, in their circumstances, they remain fixed in worship of Krishna and performing devotional service, and try to see their example in our lives, how we can apply it. But ultimately, samashritya ye palava, samashritya ye pada palavam plavam, mahatpadam punya yasho marare, bhavam buddhira vatsapadam paramparam, paramparam yadvipadam natesham. Ultimately, we have to take shelter of the lotus feet of Murari, Krishna. Now the Bhagavatam is actually, in the 10th canto, Brahma's prayers are actually, or the conclusion of them especially, is on the same level as one of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's prayers. Does anyone know one of the Shikshastika prayers, which is similar to Samashritya ye pada pada palavam plavam. What verse in the Shikshastika is similar to that? Perfect, yes. And what level of devotional service is that on? Does anyone know? What's that? Asakti, yes, it's on Asakti. And what is the characteristic of Asakti?
Attachment to Krishna and detachment from material things.
Certainly, yes. What is the quality of Asakti which is different from just ordinary nishta or ruchi or everything else? What is the quality, what does one experience when one is on the platform of Asakti? Mentally. Anyhow, it's a broad question. On the platform of Asakti, on the platform of Nishta, when one chants the holy name, one remembers Krishna's form spontaneously. On the platform of Ruchi, when one chants Krishna's name, one can experience Krishna's qualities. On the platform of Asakti, when one chants the holy name, then one remembers spontaneously Krishna's pastimes. And not only one remembers Krishna's pastimes, but one can't forget them. Well, one can forget them momentarily, but as soon as one momentarily forgets Krishna's pastimes, then the mind automatically starts remembering Krishna again, even without any effort. Nice platform. Now we have our sadhana sheet. On a Sakti, you don't need a sadhana sheet, because you can't but perform Krishna. You can't but be in Krishna consciousness. Even you try and be in Maya, the mind won't let you. It keeps on reminding you of Krishna. Here we're trying to become Krishna conscious, and our mind keeps on reminding us of Maya. So it's the opposite on a Sakti. So this is similar. As soon as we actually, gradually we learn how to take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet, we find out that they're actually soft like a lotus, like a petal of a lotus. Now we're thinking that, who is this Krishna? What is he like? How can you be sane being in every atom? Don't you get confused? Seems like he does a lot of strange things sometimes. Who is this Krishna? How can he be a cowherd boy in Vrindavan? And he keeps on killing all these demons in Vrindavan. A cowherd boy in Vrindavan, a nice person, lover of Radharani, dances and takes prasadam. And in his spare time, he kills things like demons and snakes and calves and all kinds of. What is he really like? So at the platform of Asakti, one actually experiences, even at Ruchi, at the platform of Nishta, one stops speculating so much. And the platform of Ruchi, one starts experiencing Krishna in truth. In other words, if we just stop speculating, we can actually start becoming Krishna conscious. And in the platform of Asakti, one actually starts experiencing Krishna as he actually is. One not only remembers Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, as Prabhupada writes in the beginning of the Nectar of Devotion, how to train the mind. So one can train the mind, for instance, by remembering Krishna's pastimes with Arjuna on the battlefield Kurukshetra. So what is that about? It's about hearing the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita explains to us, because the Bhagavad Gita is actually spoken by many incarnations of Krishna, so giving us a perspective on how Krishna is present in his various incarnations throughout the material and spiritual worlds. So hearing Bhagavad Gita, we can begin to see Krishna everywhere within this world, in the heart of all living entities, as his spiritual energy and his material energy in all things. And internally one can remember Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan by hearing, for instance, the Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Charitamrita. Then one can externally see Krishna everywhere and internally see Krishna everywhere by these literatures. So that's the platform of Asakti that we're trying to come to. Because after Asakti, when Krishna desires and we come to the platform of Bhava, we actually develop some real feelings. It's only when we actually have some feeling towards Krishna that we can actually remain steady in devotional service, really steady. We become attracted to devotional service, real devotional service. Because when we're at the platform of Bhava, when we have some affection for Krishna, then we realize how Krishna has unlimited affection for us. Everyone is hungry for affection, because that's our nature. But when we find out how affectionate Krishna is, and he's everywhere, then we become satisfied. Because it's not one moment we're in love, and the next moment we look at someone else and we get disgusted. Not a very happy life. Up and down like a yo-yo. No, at that stage we have affection for everyone. Whether or not they reciprocate with us, it doesn't make any difference, because we can actually see the real thing, what's actually going on. We'll see Krishna everywhere and how affectionate he is to us. And we'll see that all living entities are his instruments. And directly or indirectly, they're helping us advance in our Krishna consciousness. So therefore, we'll actually become peaceful and happy at the stage of Bhava. And the stage of Bhava is only one ray in the sunlight of prema, so we have a lot to look forward to. Imagine Bhava, when you're in love with everyone, what to speak of prema, when it increases to such an extent, you're no longer really in the material world anymore. You're in the spiritual world. You don't even know the material world exists anymore. It all seems like you're in the spiritual world. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Sue Devi. We have a microphone.
Thank you so much for today's class. These characteristics of these different stages which you described, Ashakti, Ruchi, etc., where can we read about it to understand the various symptoms of each stage?
Well, it depends what kind of detail you want. If you want the general understanding, that's called the nectar of devotion. And that's pretty detailed. Actually, it's a pretty big book for the detail. And if you want some summary of the nectar of devotion, you can read the Madhurya Kandambini. And if you want even more details than that, you can read Shiva Maharaj's book, Bhakti Shuddha Chintamani. But for most of us, nectar of devotion is pretty good. And we want to summarize Madhurya Kandambini, which has a few more details, but more or less it's the same thing.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yes.
Thank you for inspiring lecture. I just wanted to ask, when you mentioned the importance of hearing, I just wanted to ask for some advices. How can we listen attentively so that what we hear will stay with us?
Go to sleep on time. Don't eat too much at night. Chant your rounds nicely. Because if the one sound vibration we like to hear the most is the sound of our voice. So if we don't listen to ourselves, who else are we going to listen to? So if we try to chant our rounds with attention and feeling, then it's a good practice for learning to hear and chant. And then the other thing is, if we hear something and we apply it, and we get Krishna's mercy, because we sincerely try to apply it, then we'll become more inspired to hear, because we see that actually not only by hearing it, it changes our consciousness, but also when we follow it, Krishna gives us his mercy, and we make spiritual advancement, and therefore we become more and more interested. It's like if you go to a nice feast, and then they advertise another feast next week. If the feast was nice the last week, you're pretty likely to go to the next one too. Yes.
Hvala, Maharaj, za inspirativno lekcijo. Mi smo se pri Bhakti Šastri učili te...
Translation. Well, you need both. No, give her the microphone, because
Mi smo se učili na Bhakti Šastri pri nektarju danosti te nivoje platforme, ampak mene zanima, kako pa veš, kdaj si na kateri platformi, a ti nekdo drug to pove ali sam veš, ker ponavadi smo zelo kritični in rečemo, jaz nisem še B od Bhakte, kaj šele, da bi govorili o sebi v nivojih.
So in Bhakti school we were talking about these different Bhakti Shastras. We are talking about these different levels, but how can we know on which level we are? Should others tell us, or we know it? Because sometimes we are very critical and we think that we are not even at the stage of B of Bhakti, but how do we know?
Well, there's Guru, there's Sadhu, and there's Shastra. And then there's Paramatma within our heart. So the first thing is we can ask Guru, we can ask Sadhu, we can ask Shastra, and we can also ask Krishna. And Krishna will generally tell us, if you want to know, ask Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. And when we sincerely ask them, and then they explain it to us, and then we can try to pray to Krishna to clarify what they said. And if Krishna, if he wants to, then he tells us what we have to do to qualify to understand what platform we're on. Because devotional service is very simple. The different levels are generally given to us so that We don't have to tax our brain to find out exactly where we are. You know, there's Kanishta Adhikari, there's Madhyama Adhikari, there's Uttama Adhikari. By qualification, there's also by eligibility for pure devotional service. So there's all these different methodologies. But generally speaking, all we do is have to ask, how much do I identify myself with this gross and subtle material body? And how much do I identify myself as a servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna? And that will give us a pretty good idea of where our present situation is. But it shouldn't discourage us, because at least we're trying to find out. So we find out, we get some idea, then we know what the next step is. Then when we're chanting Hare Krishna, when our minds are distracted, we won't be surprised. How is it possible? Why is my mind distracted? Because that's how it's, that's the present state I'm in. But if I pay attention and I try to chant nicely, then I'll go gradually to the next stage. So without even understanding exactly where we're at, then if we just try to chant attentively and attend the program and listen to the devotees and try to develop a favorable attitude towards the devotees, trying to understand the Bhagavatam, then we'll advance without understanding every detail where we're at. Anything else? Hvala. So today I go to Germany. Deutschland über alles. And then I come back on the 10th for half a day in the morning, and then we go to Croatia. And then I come back on the 13th, I think. Yeah, 12th. Hvala Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande Haribo.